Hello, hello. We are live and we have managed to work through technical difficulties
Yeah.
and stay calm. Thank you for your patience. I see that there are quite a few people in the chat, so I'm just going to put some things up. Sharon Miller, I'm here from Faro and looking forward to seeing Shannon. And then Kim M says, I'm looking forward to Shannon's update. I was so inspired by her first live with Patricia. Hard to believe it has been 3 years since her move to Paris. Yay, yes, Marla, yay. And I will tell you, Shannon heard me chanting as she rebooted, and I thought my friend Hannah sent me this Buddhist chant for removing hindrances, and so I was chanting so that, and I think that did the trick. So we are live and we are going to be talking with Shannon Griffin today. Shannon is a member of my Carefree Expat Incubator program, and she has been living in Paris, France for 3 years after wanting to make a move abroad for such a long time. And she made it happen. She did the work and she made it happen. Before we jump into the interview, I'm just going to introduce myself. My name is Patricia Brooks. I moved to France in 2018. So come January, I will be here, have been here 8 years. It is so hard to believe it's been that long. And now I came on a sabbatical, and now I help people who are ready to start the next chapters of their lives living and thriving in a foreign country through lots of different ways, through one-on-one coaching, through group coaching with the Carefree Expat Incubator, through exit strategy planning, creating a project plan before you move to France, lots of different things. And I love it. And on my YouTube channel, I share my life and what it's like to live in France. And today we've got a special guest, Shannon Griffin. Shannon, do you want to go ahead and introduce yourself to the
Oh,
group?
yes, sure. I am from Patricia's first group.
You were among the beta testers. You were a guinea pig.
Yep, first group of hopeful would-be expats, and I can say it was a rousing success. I am an educator. I now do coaching around wellness and mindfulness and well-being, which I also teach in several universities. I don't know what else I should say about myself. I wasn't prepared for that part.
I put you on the spot. Well, we're going to dig in. We're going to get to know you, so you don't have to say anymore. Um, so you moved to France 3 years ago, and you
Mm-hmm.
did not move, and you moved to Paris.
Yes.
Why, for those who have not seen the first episode, I'm
Okay.
going to put a link so that they can watch it when they're done, when we're done here. But, why was it that you wanted to move to Paris?
Well, as you helped me uncover in the expat incubator, it really felt like my soul's calling, and I just had this drive to try to live here. Yeah, so that was my initial motivator. It just felt like this pull um,
Yeah,
to
yeah,
be in this city specifically, and to kind of, even I think before I got here, there was some sense attached to it of being able to make it in this place. Kind of like if you were going to try to move to New York, I think.
yeah,
Similar kind
yeah,
of feeling. Like, can I move there, but actually like support, live there, support
yeah.
myself, figure it out, get by.
Yeah, and when you said that, you made me think of maybe even Minneapolis, because I was thinking Mary Tyler Moore.
Yes, yes. Oh my gosh, I loved that show when I was a kid. Yeah. Yeah, it felt I think there was a piece of that in it for
Yeah,
me. And
yeah.
I think a few reasons I lived in France in my 20s and I lived in the south of France. So now that I'm in cold, dark, rainy Paris, I sometimes think to myself, why? Why Paris and not a return to the south of France where it's beautiful all the time? Um, but when I lived there, I definitely appreciated its beauty. But I was always really drawn to big cities, and I always kind of wished that I had spent some time in Paris, and I didn't. And when I moved, I thought it was going to be kind of indefinitely, not forever, but like a few years, an ongoing kind of thing. And then like 10 months later, I think, we ended up moving back.
Oh,
So
yeah, yeah.
it was a little bit like it got truncated, and we only knew like a month before leaving that we were going to leave. So sort of just at the point when I was getting acclimated and starting to feel like I had my feet under me and I could have potentially done a trip to Paris and spent some time or made some connections, we were actually moving back. And so I think
Yeah,
I always just had it in mind as like an anchor, sort of something I would do. Yeah.
yeah,
So
yeah,
that was
yeah,
the originator, I guess, of the idea.
yeah. And so you didn't move alone.
I do.
You Okay, so tell you moved with your children. Can you share a
I,
little bit what that was like
oh,
and how they adjusted? Because there's this question here from Marla. I can't wait to learn how you're doing. I'm working on getting to Paris soon with a teenager, wondering how the kids reacted to the
oh,
move, how you transitioned them, did school, how they've adjusted, all of that. So go ahead, dig in.
I'm going to be so brutally honest and encourage Marla and anyone else who has this question, please contact me directly and we will talk it through. It was brutally hard, and I'm not exaggerating. And this is the first year I feel like, maybe the middle of last year, I feel like she was adjusting. So I know so much more now than I did. I mean, as we all do, right? And as Patricia's program really encourages you to do, I did my research, and I'm pretty good at finding options and opportunities. And the cracking the code of the French school system in Paris is no easy feat. And I did not crack it. I'll say that too. So it really depends what age your child is. I moved here when Naomi was 14. And so she started the equivalent in the US of ninth grade. But in France, it's the last year of middle school, ninth grade. And that is a really tricky time to come. Um, it would be far better to come the year before or the year after. I'll say that too, if you have flexibility. It was just really hard. It was really hard. And I think some of the other factors for us as a family, were that I wasn't just moving. I had to move, find not just a job, but jobs, because I came on an auto entrepreneur visa, as did Patricia. But I needed to be able to earn enough to pay rent. Um, so I had some money saved, but I really was going to need to earn the equivalent of my rent. And I'm in Paris, so it's more expensive. And I needed an apartment that could fit 3 people, because as it happened, my oldest daughter also came with us and did an exchange year. She was 20. I should know this. She was, oh my God, 20 that year. So it was her 3rd year of university. So I needed an apartment that would sleep 3 people. 2 bedrooms. I mean, I couldn't have done 3 bedrooms, but there were just a lot of factors. And not only was I looking for teaching jobs, but I'd been teaching in the US, but I had only had 2 university teaching position experiences to port with me. Um, it I didn't end up with any university teaching positions until late spring after I arrived. So I came in August of 2022, and my first university teaching position that I took was started in like April of 2023. So before that, I was really piecing it together. So I think in part, if I'd had a more stable job situation and I could have been 50% focused on school and the schooling situation, that could have had an effect. I'm single, so I didn't have a spouse or someone else who could be running those things. But I did use an agency, and that still did not really help me. I could give someone the whole lay of the land now. So again, if you are moving to Paris with a teenager, please contact me.
Yeah. And I put your email address in the
Yeah,
chat.
that's great. And the only other thing I'll say to kind of maybe fill out what I mean by that, if you're from a big city in the US or you know of New York City's public and private school system and how, well, in general in the US, in bigger cities, the public school system, you have to get in to the right neighborhood, right school to get into the next one for middle, to get into the next one for high school. It works like that in Paris. But on top of that, it's like New York City, where somehow they've managed to segregate it by money and who you are, what neighborhood you live in, no matter how many times they mix it up. And as a result of that, if you are coming from outside, it does not matter what your outside status is. It's like in the US, it's like you're coming from a poor community, essentially. Like you're just at the bottom of the barrel, and everything is based on grades and scores on tests. And there's no accommodation for the fact that your child is not a native French speaker. So these are all the things that it just really challenge.
Well, so you're in year 3. Your daughter is in year 3 of
Yep.
school. How has
Year
she
four, like
adjusted? That was the beginning, right? So
yeah.
how has she adjusted?
Yeah, right. So it's year 4 of school for her. I mean, the start,
Okay.
right? So
Yes.
it's her
Yes.
last year of high school. She has done amazingly, in my view. Like, but it is not easy. But she's in a private school. I mean, I did not crack the public school system. So she's in a private school, but it's the French system. It's in French. She has like a track in English in addition to the French, but like she did the French baccalaureate exam last year and passed, which we were like, oh, thank God. Yeah, I mean, in terms of how she's doing in school, she's doing great now. And it's just a huge adjustment for American kids because their school day, this year particularly, she goes to school from 8 to 6 every day. And one day it's until 7 or 7:30. And that alone is like a huge adjustment for American kids who are used to having extracurriculars, and they're done it too. And yeah, it's just a really different system.
Does she get Wednesdays off?
Oh, no. They do that. I want to say it's until middle school. And
Oh.
then maybe in middle school, you might still have shorter days on Wednesday, but not past like the equivalent of US 6th grade, I would say. 6th
Oh,
grade.
wow.
Yeah.
Well, I think here maybe it is. Maybe it's different in different areas.
It certainly could be. And I have heard from people that even at the high school level, it's nowhere near this level of competition in the rest of France, which wouldn't surprise me.
Yeah, because it's Paris,
Yeah.
right?
Right. And that's why I make the comparison. I know of the school system in New York City, and it's like this same kind of crazy, because there's so many people with wealth and there's so many people in such a small area. And it's the way they kind of fight it out for spots in these
Mhm.
what become like exclusive schools. It's like that. So you're not just fighting, they have to put you in a public school, but they don't have to put you in one in your neighborhood past middle school. So
Wow.
once you're in high school, you could be anywhere, and that means you've lost your slot in any of the good public schools, basically,
Wow.
as an outsider, as a foreigner. Because there's also preference if you've been in the public school system, which of course you haven't been if you just moved here. Yeah, there's all kinds of things that, again, like I can see it as an American. I'm like, oh, I know who you're trying to keep out. It's not really me. However, you're also keeping out foreigners. I mean, it's any foreigner is really excluded by this system, because I've met a lot of them through my daughter's two schools and had lots of interesting conversations with people who are like, yeah, this is a real, like if someone's looking to start a business, to start up a school in Paris for expats, it would be hugely popular.
Yeah. Oh, the business idea. So Edelweiss has a question, but private school is an option. Is that expensive?
I mean, not by US standards. And there are options for private schools. So they have Catholic schools, which are like a pseudo public private, and they're the least expensive. There's something like 3 to 4,000 euros a year. And then I'll just there I don't know what to call them specifically, but I think of them as like mid-range private, and they're somewhere between 9 and 15,000 euros a year.
Mhm.
And then the kind of upper level, the ones that you've maybe heard of in Paris, like the American International School, the British International School, there's a bunch of them. They're like they start lower for the lower school and middle school, but like once you're in high school, it's like 25 to 35,000 euros a year, like an American price for an elite private school.
Yeah.
We didn't apply to any of those. Yeah, but in fact, one of my mistakes was I put her in private school for ninth grade, because you have to, it's like everything in France, you have to have an address to get a spot in public school. You have to have an address by January 1st of the year that they'll go in September. What I didn't know was, because they don't tell you, that's true, except if you move into the city, they have to put you in a public school. And so the right choice would have been to do that, get into whatever public school they put you in, and then maneuver for a spot in high school from there.
Yeah.
But once I didn't do that and I was in the private school system, that was like another set of points off that we were, it's essentially like announcing, oh, we don't need public school, we can afford private.
Yeah. Yeah. Although the education secretary sent her kids to private school,
Also,
so
right. Oh, but they have, I mean, the reason people do that, again, it's very similar to New York, where there are certain public schools in New York that are some of the best in the country. But I mean, no spots, right? For the amount of population, like how many kids are getting into those. So even the secretary, her kids probably just didn't get in. And so she sent them to an elite private school. But most people here use public schools, so it makes it that much more competitive.
yeah,
That's the biggest
yeah.
problem.
Yeah. Well, so you mentioned these issues with, navigating the French school system and all the things that you had to deal with there. But you also said that you started your business in France, and so you didn't have a lot of extra time to devote to
Right.
figuring that out. I'd like to talk about what it's been like. What is it really like to start a business? Like, because for me, when I moved to France, I took a couple years sabbatical. So I wasn't thrown into, okay, I'm living in a new country. I didn't have kids. And I'm trying to get a business up and running and make the French minimum wage in the first year. But you did, like, you moved on that profession liberale visa,
Yeah.
and you were dealing with school things. What has it been like to to go down that route?
I mean, I don't know if I would counsel someone to take the same path. In hindsight, I think partly it's my personality to take things on in that way. Like, oh, let's just do all the things at the same time. Partly no choice. I felt like no choice in quotation marks. I felt like I had no choice but to do it that way. Um, and in hindsight, maybe I could have explored more choices, like other ways to finance myself for 6 months, 12 months. But I mean, hindsight's 2020. And even then, I think I would only have been comfortable doing that had I known that, 3 years out, you'll be making, I don't want to call it enough money, but you'll be making decent money. Not even like 2 years out, you'll be making decent money, especially for France. And you can't know that in advance. So I felt a lot of pressure to just hit the ground running and do whatever I needed to do to try to. It was kind of like building through momentum. Like, okay, I'm just going to throw everything at it. And I think we talked about it multiple times, like throwing spaghetti at the wall to see what sticks. That's an intense way to build something. But again, in my situation, I think the momentum really helped me, and the throwing spaghetti helped me to kind of hone in on, okay, which of these things do I want to keep putting more energy into, and which of them, okay, I'm keeping it this year because I need the income, but I'm not going to devote extra energy because that's not the direction for me. And so I got divorced, what is it now, 8 years ago? Yeah, about 8 years ago. I mean, I was a stay-at-home parent for like 15 years. So I was that's a lot of things to do like all at the same time. I don't know that I'd counsel somebody else to do it. But again, given my background, I mean, I felt like I already had so many of the pieces, and I had a lot of faith in myself because prior to being a stay-at-home parent, even as a stay-at-home parent, I was always doing a lot of things. I was always teaching. I went back to school and got a master's degree, like right as I was getting separated. So I did that while single parenting, while working part-time, so I'm good at doing things in that way. And I had worked professionally in DC for like 7 years before I got married. So I had a professional work background. I had the experience of having moved to DC in my 20s with no job and very little direction, and just kind of same thing. In hindsight, I can say I took the same approach here. I just like moved and hit the ground running.
Well, so let me ask you this. We talk about the bureaucracy with the school, right? You know, is it hard? Like, setting up the business, is it getting it going? Like, are there lots of hurdles that you have to jump through to
Um, so actually setting up the business is not hard. It's, I mean, and certainly in the scheme of things that are hard in France, it's pretty easy as French things go, as you know. I mean, there aren't a lot of hurdles to being an auto entrepreneur. And there's a whole category for that now. And you've recommended great people in the past. Valerie, I forgot her last name.
Aston?
She does a lot of work around like, what are the tax implications? And but so far I haven't even really explored that, because up to a certain amount of income, it's pretty straightforward and easy.
Yeah.
And because it's France, it's pretty hard to make more than that income. I mean, and the taxes, in fact, have been the easiest thing. Like I pay quarterly on the website for the tax.
For the social charges?
Yeah, no, all of them, or stuff. All my charges I pay
Yeah,
directly.
but there's
Not my
another.
personal tax, but all my business tax. Yeah.
Yes.
And it's super, I mean, for a French thing, especially, I'm like, wow, they've really figured it out for taxing businesses. Like
Yeah.
it goes smoothly. They email me reminders. Like it's that site's never down. Like
Yeah, and this
it's
this is
always
for this is for things like, if you needed to take, um, disability, or, it's for the carte vitale, things like that, that they're, yeah. Gotcha,
right.
gotcha. So it just sounds like, you have a lot going on. Like, maybe if you had moved abroad alone, that the business thing might not have been so doing it in the first year might not have been such a heavy lift, because you might have had more time to devote to it.
Right. I more
Mhm.
time to devote to it and or less pressure to be bringing in as much
Yeah,
money. So for me, it was a lot of it was a time issue, not just having a family, but also I would just the first year I just took whatever jobs I got. And we're really every year up until this year, I basically took whatever work I came across. So
mhm.
it meant constantly essentially like starting a new job, but like 3 to 5 of them every year concurrently. And just the commuting can be really brutal in Paris. Yeah, but again, I think from having moved to DC, I intuitively understood that. It's like I knew what an hour commute on the metro meant because I had done that before. So it's not ideal, but none of that wore me down, I don't think, as much as it could have had I just had no idea and thought, oh, it'll be easy. I didn't think it was going to be easy either. So that also helped me. I mean,
Yeah,
I just had a real determination. I mean, I think probably everyone who goes through your program, they have a specific thing they're trying to do. And I think the thing I was trying to do was really like succeed at Paris. Like if I could sum it up now in hindsight, and I feel like I did that. I'm really proud of myself. Like I live in the center of Paris. I don't live in the suburbs. I managed to pay my rent every month. I didn't have a goal to become really wealthy doing this. Um, my kids have adapted. And my oldest daughter came back this year, in fact, which is for me like a big success. Like she feels like it's home and she came and got a visa and got a job here for the year.
nice.
And these were all kind of pieces of my list, like kind of succeeding at Paris, being able to live in the city, getting my kids adapted in some way so they could have an experience of living in France, in a big city. Um, but that won't be what everybody's looking to do. So, I would also caution people around so many things if that wasn't their goal. And predominantly, somebody moving here with a adolescent, like a teenager, I would tell you where to move, and it would not be inside Paris. It would be there's 3 suburbs that I would recommend depending on your situation. And I would really encourage you to move there and not here. Unless, you have some reason to be in Paris proper or your job is here or whatever. Um, yeah.
Yeah, yeah. And so, the move was a big deal, a heavy lift that first year, the second year,
Same
like,
here.
third year. What was, when we spoke earlier, this month, we talked about making friends.
Mm,
'Cause that's a big concern for people who are making a move abroad. Like, they don't
yeah.
know anybody. It's hard to, people hear about how it's hard to break into the friend community for French friends. Can you share what your experience has been in, um, making friends in Paris? Um, yeah.
I would say, what do I start with? Uh, I would agree. It's hard to make friends. You realize that we really make friends at certain periods of our life and then also in certain situations. And when you make yourself an expat, you've removed almost all of those. So one way to make friends is through work. But working as an English teacher, I have very little contact with French colleagues.
Mm.
And the first year anyway, I think I really had this idea, oh, I don't want to just move there and be with Anglophones all the time. Also, I work all day in English, so I'd like to use my French and be with French people. That really limited me. It was definitely a mistake. Expats are your go-to for everything, for friends, friendships, for every kind of paperwork you would need to do. France, I think, is particular for that. It's also convoluted that you really need support. And expats, French people don't have to do any of those things. They don't have to renew a visa. They have no idea what that means or how stressful it is. You really need the support of the expat community. And in France, anyway, you really need to know other Americans, because those are the only people who have to do the things you need to do, like file both French and US taxes, or, you know, what about my Social Security, or if I invest, or if I sell my house in the US, or just all these things. And they are a wealth of information that I denied myself access to for like a full year. And I think, as do a lot of people who move outside the US, you're like, oh, well, I don't really, that's why I'm leaving the US. But what I forgot is, yeah, all the other people like me who wanted to live outside the US, they're expats here. Some of them are here. So of course, these would be people I would be friends with. So that's the first thing about, I would say, about making friends. Absolutely use the expat community, and specifically the American community. I think that probably depends a lot on where you are, how big or small the city, but I think probably it's the same in big cities everywhere. It doesn't depend on the country. Because the city's so big, because people are more transient or isolated in their little corners and boxes, you're really going to need expats, and specifically American expats, to kind of welcome you in, because they know also. That's the other thing. They're so welcoming because they know, oh, no French people are welcoming you. We know. So yeah, come. And I've been invited to do all kinds of things since I started reaching out, like with people of every age, right? So, you know, I started going to things, and one of the things was I was introduced to this walking group, and all the women are like, I would say 8 to 15 years older than me. And it does not matter. And sometimes they have people 15 years younger than me that join them also. Because they're just so like warm and welcoming, and they're all deeply connected into the French community too. So it's another way to eventually meet French people through them, right? So that's another, it doesn't limit you like, oh, I'm only hanging out with expats, so now I'm only going to know these expats. I do think that probably is also a function of your age and your situation. So one way for sure you can meet people, including locals, is if you are working in the language. But a second way is school. So like if you have young kids, it's actually not a problem. You're going to meet all the parents at the school. But once your kids are in high school, I don't know any parents at my kids' school. So it cuts off another place you're going to meet them. And then, as I said, for me, I'm not working. I mean, almost all my colleagues are Anglophones. They're expats. Almost no one is a French person. But even there, inevitably, now that I've been here 3 years, I've met other English teachers who are French. So that also is like an entry point work. And then the last way I would say, and I think we often forget this in the chaos of doing a big move like this, go do the things that you used to do in the US that you love. And you will find people that you'll like because they also love that thing. So like I'm also a yoga teacher, but I was practicing yoga in a community of people until I moved. And I did not go to a yoga studio here for like a full year. And I look back, I'm like, I wish someone had been here to be like, go to the yoga studio. Even my friends back home were like, go to the yoga studio. What are you doing? But I was just so tired. I couldn't like get up the energy to go pursue any hobbies, honestly. But that's where I've started to meet people. I mean, the few times that the one studio that I found not so far away from me, I immediately met a whole group of women who invited me in, and we'd go for coffee every week after this yoga class. Also all expats, but from all over the world, and really interesting. And I was like, oh, why did I wait so long to do this? Like, this would have been a great way to meet people and make some friends.
Yeah. Well, I think you had said though that you were just so busy with everything else that, you know, that was just not something that you prioritized. You know,
Yeah.
looking back, as you say, hindsight, right? It's 2020, right? It would have been great. Uh, I did kind of like the opposite, right?
Mm,
I didn't want to be around the expat community
right.
because my goal was to become fluent in French. And
Yeah.
I have seen like people who do that and then never get to a certain level of French.
That's
And so,
right.
yeah. And so now I'm at this place. Well, a couple years ago, I was like, okay, yeah, that's fine now. I feel comfortable that I have made enough progress that I'm going to get to where I want to go. But that was my thinking about the whole expat community.
Yeah.
This question kind of talks about this. Miss Sierra 222. Did you speak French when you arrived in Paris?
Yes. So, and that also was, it made it less a concern for me, as you
Mhm.
said, like, oh, I don't want to only have English speaking friends and never learn French. I already had good French when I moved here. But it doesn't help me meet French people. I mean, it's the better my French gets, in fact, the more, because now I can do everything in French. I can be with a whole group of French people for a weekend. I don't even really get tired anymore. I understand everything. I can talk about anything. I mean, my French isn't perfect. Like, I still sometimes feel like I sound like a fifth grader, but I can talk about anything in French, and I can even like hear two conversations at the same time in French and kind of follow both of them.
Mhm.
Um,
That's
but
good.
I mean, this has been a lot of years, and I did the 5 years before I moved. So I lived here for a year in my 20s, and my French was quite good then. I didn't really keep it up, but I did enough here and there to not lose it. And then my kids went to a French immersion school in the States, and that they started doing that like, how old are they now? Like 13 years ago. So as soon as they started doing that, I kind of had a re-entry into French, and I would talk to the teachers there in French. I started using it more. Eventually I started teaching there. And so the 5 years before I moved, I was teaching at the school at that point in French. And then I made it kind of my mission, like, okay, every day I'm doing French on top of this. I would watch a movie or a series, listen to a podcast, listen to music. Anytime I was alone, anywhere, I was listening to something in French. So I put in a lot of work to get to that place. But my French still improved from the time I got here until now. Um, but so all of that is to say, I realize now, as good as my French is, most of my barriers now in communication in French, I realize, oh yeah, because it's all the unspoken, the connotation, the historical or cultural references that whoop, just go right over my head. There's so much that I still don't understand as a result of that. Like, you really have to live in it for so long before you can really cross over all those barriers. I mean, it's crazy. And with some of the like, not work, but like administrative related stuff, honestly, I sometimes think, wow, I feel like I'd be better off if I did not speak French. Because inevitably they would have to help me. They speak English, they just don't like to. And I mean, sometimes I read these forms or I'm doing something online and I'm just like, I understand every word here and I do not know what this means. So, in other words, you still need so much help to be to understand and to be understood, even when you speak really well. It's kind of crazy.
Yeah. So you spoke about your, all of the challenges you faced, you know, and this was your dream. You made it, but there were lots of struggles that you had to manage through. What were some of the things that allowed you to stay the course? Because you could have gone back, right? You could be like, uncle, right?
Right? I did. I had two different periods where I almost went back. um, and one of the things that kept me going was my daughter, who 2 years in decided, okay, I don't think I can go back and go do my last 2 years of high school in Richmond. Like, I don't know how I can leave this and go do that, even though I hate it. What will I do there? But then after her third year here last year, at the end of the school year, she was like, oh, no way. Like, I am getting my baccalaureate. Like, I've worked too hard for too long. There's no way I'm leaving without that thing. And so that really, not only was it a reason to stay, but it really inspired me, like, oh, right. So, I want to do what I came here to do, so that if I decide to leave at some point, it's because I'm done and not because I couldn't do it, if that makes
Which,
sense.
yeah, which leads into Edelweiss's question: is France a permanent move?
I mean, you and my mother, like, every time I talk to my mom, she's like, you're never coming back. I don't know. I don't feel at home here, I will say. Well,
Tell us about that a little bit.
I don't know. I guess that's not entirely true anymore. I don't feel at home here, like homey, it's easy, exhale kind of home. But I do feel like we're always excited. We've gone to the US for 5 weeks this past summer, and the summer before it was 6 weeks. And both times we were really excited to come back. And when we got here, the apartment and the living situation feels like we're home now.
Yeah.
But I think maybe because I have kids, maybe because I'm older, maybe because I lived in the city where my parents and family were for like 20 years before I moved here. Maybe some combination. I do feel more and more like it's not just about acclimating. It's really about being entrenched in a community. And I don't at all feel entrenched in any community here. I feel like if I moved back in a month, it would take most people who know me a while to figure it out. So I don't have that kind of community. I haven't really built that yet. But in hindsight, I can see, as we discussed, it's all these things. I was just literally too busy. The whole first year, I never even attempted to go do anything to make a friend or like go for a coffee with someone, or I just didn't have the time or energy. So I can see it just takes time and energy and investment. And I could see that going forward, I'd be able to do that if I decided to. But it does, in that way, it still feels a little bit like it used to feel like between two worlds. It doesn't feel like that now. It just more feels like we're not that entrenched here, but maybe we can't quite go back anymore.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it's an
Yeah.
interesting in between.
And I think that you're in an interesting situation because your daughter's in her last year of high school.
Well,
And right. So then you could potentially be an empty nester soon too.
right,
So that question is kind of like, that's a loaded question.
right.
Right.
And it's, and I have 3 kids. And so, as I mentioned, my oldest daughter moved back this year and she's here for the year. And so I have 2 of them. The third one is in the US, in Virginia, teaching, working. But they're also not old enough that they're like really established anywhere. And where I am is still home for them. So on the one hand, it's a little bit of like, I'll definitely stay here and stay put for the next several years, because I think even for them, they need that still.
Mhm.
And I wouldn't want to uproot myself again and try to reestablish that at this point in my life.
Yeah.
Um, but it a little bit depends on what the three of them end up doing, decide to do.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know.
Right, and that when people ask me that question, I'm like, "Yeah, I think so," but I never thought that I was gonna move to France, so, I'm who knows, who knows? I think the question or the discussion about community is really interesting because 'cause you've got friends, but the community that makes the place feel more like home, and that takes a while. I feel like
Yeah,
I think I'm there right now with I'm in a smaller place too, right? So I think that might be well, it depends. Like some people say, oh, it's small town, and so maybe it's less, not as easy to make inroads. But I feel like I have definitely gotten to that place. On Monday, I went to this. I'm learning to play in a group, Romanian gypsy band.
oh,
I
okay.
can't play my flute by ear, but I guess I'm gonna have to learn that because he doesn't like it's there's no sheet music. So, but there were 8 or 10 people, and it just felt like, oh yeah, this is normal. I was afraid initially. I was like, oh, I wonder what this is gonna be like. Really don't know much about this, but I left. I was like, ah, yeah, this
Yeah.
feels really good. Yeah. So we got some more questions, and I want to get to them. Or are there questions? There was one question I saw here. Oh, Rider Skater. I'm not sure, Rider Skater, if you were here for the reason why she wanted to move to Paris, but go ahead. And do you regret leaving America and not moving to an English-speaking country in Europe, like Ireland or UK? Would that have made the transition to Europe easier?
I don't regret it because I really wanted to come to Paris and
Hmm.
I could not have, there's no way I could have known without living here what it would be like. And I definitely don't regret trying. I mean, I'll never regret trying and actually living here. I'm never going to regret it. My kids are in love with the UK, all three of them, and Ireland. They're like, why couldn't you have picked? Why wasn't one of those places where you wanted to go desperately? And I don't know why. And I think too, as I mentioned, I lived here in my 20s, and I had some sense like I wasn't done. And Paris was always something on a pull for me and on my agenda. But it was when I was here, it was with my ex-husband, and it was not on his. So it also felt like, I think for me, a way to complete something that I never felt was finished, but on my terms and what I wanted it to be about. The UK was never a draw for me, and Ireland, I have from my name, maybe you can imagine Shannon Griffin. I have a lot of Irish ancestry. Like on my dad's side, one whole side of the family is just Irish. Um, I actually love Ireland. I have a good friend in Ireland, and I've been many times, but I've never had a pull to move there. But all three of my girls are like, we would move to Dublin in a heartbeat, and they all love the UK. And my oldest daughter actually spent all of last year in the UK teaching at a boarding school in the South through a fellowship from the University of Virginia. And my middle daughter did the year we moved, and the three of us were here. She did a university exchange in London and loved it and wants to return. And my youngest daughter, who's been here throughout, that would be her top choice of places to go to university, actually, would be the UK. So
Yeah.
they're all, so I don't regret it. I still, even with them all being like, why? And I do honestly think the transition would have been better for them because of the English. And in fact, I will also say when I lived in Europe in my 20s, I found the cultural divide between the UK and Ireland and the US to be pretty big. And now it's not that big. which again, like I didn't have the draw to go there, so I didn't really think about it. But if if that had been my primary reason for moving abroad, I might have thought about Ireland or the UK. And finally, but I also it wouldn't have been on my radar because my other big reason, I guess, is language, like language immersion. And I always planned it with my ex as well. We always talked about moving abroad when our kids were like in middle school, high school. So they would go to school in a different country in another language. So I wouldn't have chosen an English speaking place just for that. And again, now having done it, I'm like, that's really hard on a kid. But I do think there's some places that it would be easier, even inside France. Because in fact, someone that we know from Richmond, Virginia, they moved to France the same time we did, and they moved to the Southwest. Their kids were younger, but they had a totally different experience, and they loved it so much they stayed, and they're still here too. And their kids have been in public school and had a great experience. But I also think it's predominantly because their kids were so much younger when they started.
Yeah. Here's another question from Miss Sierra 222. What was the worst period for you in this whole process?
Just one? No. I mean, I think I think the beginning. I think the first. I always think in semesters, but like the first 3 to 4 months I was here, when everything felt simultaneously new, but not in the good way, and overwhelming. And, you know, we came in August, so it's just getting darker and darker and darker.
And colder and colder and colder.
And stress. And that was definitely the worst period, that first. Because I mean, on the good side, even by the spring, it was already getting better for everyone.
So Paris had been a dream of yours for such a long time. And it was your soul's calling. You're there. You've been there for 3 years.
I know. I sometimes feel like I don't appreciate enough, or like, I don't know, a combination of give myself enough credit or just take enough time to just sit back and say, wow, you did this thing. Like, this is amazing.
Well, so my question there is, how has you had this, and some people I speak to about moving to France or moving anywhere, it's like, oh, am I romanticizing it, this, that, or the other thing? In what ways do you feel like the dream has truly been fulfilled, and in what ways do you feel like it's really different?
Like the bubble burst.
Yes.
I think the dream has really been fulfilled in where I live, like my neighborhood, my apartment. In terms,
you have a beautiful apartment, I have to say.
Oh, I've probably been to my. I mean, it's crazy that I have this apartment as a teacher. I've had people come over, and you can tell they're like doing the mental math, like, how do you live here? Yeah, it's such a lucky find. It's an amazing apartment. I had all these vision boards of moving to Paris, and every single one of them had an apartment, you know, this kind of apartment with the, what do you call it?
The molding?
Yes, the mold. I was like, I could only think of the French word. The molding and the beautiful old windows, and there'd be a tree out of the window. And when I was first moving and talking to French people about like looking for an apartment, they were like, you won't have a tree. You need to let go of the tree. You're not getting a tree. And I have a tree out of my window because my living room windows, both of them, look out. There's a terrace in the building across from mine, and behind the terrace in the courtyard is this enormous tree. And it's like all I see out of my living room windows. And I'm like, no, I will have a tree. Look, there it is. And in fact, almost every place I work, I also have trees out of my window. All these universities that I work, the commutes are terrible, but when I arrive, almost every classroom I ever have, I have a tree out of the window. And I've really noticed that. I'm like, okay, this
You
is,
manifested that.
yeah, I think I did. But it's, you know, like everything is two-sided, right? So like overall, this move to Paris, and in what ways did the bubble burst? The apartment, like I absolutely love this apartment, but now that I know Paris, there's another neighborhood of Paris that I would move into, and it's not the Paris of postcards and your dreams and all those photos you see of apartments and views out of the window. They're here in the neighborhood I live in. I'm like, I see them sometimes. I'm like, I think that might be the building around the corner. Like, it's crazy. It's so beautiful right where I am, because it's like a neighborhood with a bunch of the embassies, and it's really close to some of the big French sites. But there's a different neighborhood that, and I've thought about, my kids and we've talked about it too, that if I stay here longer term and I stay inside Paris proper, I would move to this other neighborhood, because everything in the last year and a half, everything that I've like started doing, sign up to do, I meet somebody and they're like, oh, we should meet for coffee. They all live in this neighborhood. They all live in the 11th. And I'm like, okay. And but I couldn't have known that before I moved here. I mean, I couldn't have known that, you know, the picture of Paris, and I got it. I got my picture of Paris. I got my tree outside my window, but the real Paris, where I actually would meet like-minded people, where my yoga studio is, where this
The
tango
community, right?
yeah, like the tango class that my colleague, this other place, gives is like right around the corner from a yoga studio. I was like, of course it is. That's, I think, where my community would be and where I'm going to find my people. So probably I will move to that neighborhood if I stay here.
Yeah, yeah. And Marla says, oh my God, you just said exactly what I told my husband. Must have a tree at window height and wraparound balcony in Haussmannian building. Manifest, right?
I am such a believer in manifesting. Yeah. I mean, if I manage,
Put it on your refrigerator. You want to share that little tip?
yes. I mean, if I manage to get myself here as a divorced single mom I came here with a 14-year-old and convinced my ex-husband to let me move here with her, you know, and got this apartment with this huge living room and these amazing windows looking out on a tree. You for sure can get your wraparound balcony.
Yeah,
just post those pictures on your fridge.
So it sounds to me like the dream. Yes, it's been hard, but it sounds to me like what I hear you saying is that, yeah, it pretty much matches. Or did I not hear
Yes.
something?
And I guess, I mean, as you're talking to me and asking me these questions, I'm kind of putting the pieces together. Yes. And it's kind of like that. You have this dream, this reach, this like, I really want, you know, and maybe in the end, what you think you want isn't exactly. So I got what I thought I wanted, but maybe what I want is a little grungier part of Paris that has the yoga studio that I love and the tango class and the colleagues and the community. Because in fact, that's where I was living in the city where I moved from. But the important part is the important part is the community and finding the like-minded people and putting yourself in another space where you're going to do that. And I've had this question, I'm sure you have. I think everybody who moves has this at one point or another, where you're like, why did I have to move if I'm still doing all the same stuff? But I think it's part of it. I think there's an element of moving and having this dream and wanting, you know, this, that, or the other thing, and trying it out, and then seeing which parts of this are actually really important to me in my day-to-day life, and what things did I give up that are actually too important to give up, and I need to bring those back in. And So just the apartment example, it's kind of like, yeah, I probably could give up this really gorgeous apartment in this beautiful neighborhood. They clean our streets, I think, every day. It's so clean in my neighborhood. To move to this kind of grungier part of Paris that's not so clean, but would have the community, right? And kind of like getting to the best of both worlds. But I think you have to move and try something first.
Yeah, right. And you will always be able to say, oh my gosh, that first apartment I lived in Paris,
Right,
you wouldn't believe it.
right.
I think you make a really good point about that community piece and knowing, right? For me, when I moved to Perpignan, I knew it. Like it was a feeling. It was like, this is my new home. And it was great for the first year. But
Mm,
as I walked the city, I couldn't find the neighborhood, like
mm.
the tree-lined streets, the with the boulangerie and the cafe. And now I think about where I am, and it's like, okay, we've got multiple, cafes, and the plane trees here are magnificent. But it feels like, oh, this is what I was looking for in Perpignan, but I couldn't find it. And
Yeah,
so, yeah, you have to move, and maybe you have to, pivot slightly to get to that thing that is exactly the right thing. But you got close, and you've had this wonderful experience. So,
yes. Yeah. Yeah, I wouldn't trade it. I don't think I'd trade. I think the only thing I would change if I could go back and redo things would be my daughter's school experience. But everything else, I wouldn't change it because
yeah.
it led to so many great things. It's made me grow so much. Um, yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Well, we're getting ready to wrap up, but at least Alyssa Hunter has just logged on, and she's like, ah! And I don't know that you know the answer to this, but
Okay.
what is the most affordable and legit agency to find an apartment?
God. You should email me and I will email you back a whole list of suggestions. It
And
is really tricky to find an apartment in Paris at all because the good ones go like the same day. Um, it, yeah,
all
it's
right,
tricky.
so I just put her contact information in. It's tricky.
Yeah,
Yes,
it's tricky. But if you
that's
want to,
another hour, right?
yeah, but if you want to look online, there's the place, Patricia, you probably know it, Se Loger.
Yeah. Hmm.
Yeah, so Sologer .fr, I think. They're legit. It's just really hard. I, for months, tried to make contact with people and they didn't respond, or they'd respond and be in the very French way, like, all those apartments you talked about are gone. How about these? And I'm like, no, these are all awful. Like, why is this what I'm getting back from you? You really can't do it till you get here, is the short answer. So you need to do something temporary. And then once you're here, you need to look, because you really also should go look at places in person or find someone who can do it for you on the ground. Like, I would not rent an apartment in Paris long term from outside of Paris. I would be on the ground to do it. Plus, it will help you get it if you're physically in front of them.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. This is I want to share this. This is a neat comment. Being a single parent changes your priorities. Sounds like your current flat is for you and your kids. The next will be for you. I like that.
Yeah. I like that too.
And we've got Nodalities. This has been an amazingly insightful conversation. Many, many thanks. Um,
Thank you.
Oh, and Dion has joined us she's from the Carefree Expat Incubator. She says, thank
Oh,
you, ladies. And I put a link to Shannon's first interview in the chat. I just put it there. So if you did not see that first interview, go back and listen to it, because that's a good one as well. So yeah, check that out. I just wanted, ooh, I just wanted to thank everybody who joined live. If you haven't liked the video, go ahead and like the video, so that gets out to more people. If you are interested, Shannon really wanted this, but she was stuck, and she reached out to me, um, joined the program, and now look at her. She
It
is.
really got me over that hump. I
Mhm.
cannot recommend Patricia enough.
Thank you, thank you. So, if you're interested, you can go to my website, um, the courage you can apply here, thecouragecatalyst.com/CEI, or just go to my website, thecouragecatalyst.com, and you can learn more about the program. Additionally, there are other things that I offer that you might be interested in. And Shannon, you are doing amazing things with mindfulness. Can you want to share a little bit about what you do and who you help, so that people, if they're interested, can reach out to you as well?
Yes, and I would love that. It started, I mentioned I'm a yoga teacher and I've practiced and taught yoga and mindfulness meditation for 20 years. But when I moved here, it really started because one of the universities I was teaching in asked me to teach a themed course in English. And I went through the standard list of things they are always looking for: debate, public speaking. And, she's like, no, we have that, we have that. And this little voice in my head was like, just say mindfulness and well-being, just say it. And I did, and they leapt on it. And so I developed this whole course for engineering students. And now I teach it at 3 universities. And I decided to expand. I had done coaching training as well prior to my move, hoping that I would do teaching and coaching. And so as I started teaching this course, I started thinking about transitioning it into offering mindfulness and well-being to individuals, to groups. I'm starting a teacher group actually this year at one of the universities where I teach, where the teachers will come, and it's really for them, not so much to teach the concepts as for them to just be doing their own mindfulness and well-being practices. I'm doing a training right now to be trained in teaching MBSR, which is mindfulness-based stress reduction. If anyone's familiar with it, it's John Kabat-Zinn, and he's kind of he's somebody who started doing this work in the 70s, but he was simultaneously a medical student, I think at Harvard, and now he has this center, I think at MIT, or it might be the other way around, that because he attached it to this medical center, he started looking at how meditation affects pain and pain management. And because he was in this position as a student and then as a teaching doctor, he was able to keep this institute going. And it's one of the places that has kind of the longest and the most research around the effects of mindfulness on pain management and pain reduction. So I'm doing a training in that right now.
Mm-hmm.
And I would just really love to be able to work with people and help bring these tools into people's lives, especially something like if people are working with Patricia, it can be nice in conjunction with that to help you find your focus, like help you kind of shut out the outside noise, regardless of your situation, to help you really hone in on what's speaking to you and what's coming from inside you,
Yeah.
so you can act on it.
Right. So you can reach out to Shannon at the email that's on the screen. And one last message, Sharon Miller, who is also in the Carefree Expat Incubator. Um, what a lovely update. I agree, Shannon, the Carefree Expat Incubator makes a huge difference. So,
It does.
all right. So, somebody said they're off to watch the first one. Like
Oh,
and subscribe. Yes, please like and subscribe. Thank you, Miss Sierra 222. This has been a wonderful live stream, Shannon. Thank you so much for agreeing to give us an update on this.
thank you
And
so much for having me. This has been such a delight, and I had such a great experience with you. I want to recommend you to everybody and anybody.
Go
So
ahead, do it. I'm not stopping you. All right. Well, thank you everybody who joined us live. Thank you for those who are watching the replay. And, feel free to reach out to Shannon. She's been gracious enough to give out her email address. So thank you, everybody. See you guys next time. Take care. Bye bye.